Again, to talk a little bit about helping the young people engaging in this behavior, we have to care about the person. We have to get at the underlying behaviors. We have to look at some other means they can learn in terms of coping. We have to help them with their self-esteem and their problem solving. Recognize it is going to be a struggle. It's going to take a while. And how can we get them to the best help available in our community? The literature also talks about what's called really a Bill of Rights. And I want you to imagine for a moment that we have two kids sitting in an emergency room. One kid was running, fell, landed on barbed wire, and has a nasty cut on his arm and is awaiting stitches. The other kid is there because they purposely engaged in self-injury, but today they cut really deep and there's a lot of blood. So do you think those two young people are going to get exactly the same level of compassion and caring? Or is somebody going to say, what? You did this to yourself, in a very disapproving manner. So we need to respond with compassion. Matter of fact, know the community resources. What are some of those substitute strategies? And what I'm about to describe is not intended to be an exhaustive list, but here are some of the things that young people have shared. They carry stuff with them. They might carry something that they pull out of their pocket that smells good, something that they can run their fingers over that provides a lot of sensory input. They might engage in journaling. They might make a collage. They might call a friend. They might get one of those really hot candies. I think it's actually called a fireball. Put one of those in your mouth and you get a great deal of sensory input. They might stand on their tiptoes. They might try to hold books out at arm's length. They might snap a rubber band against their wrist. They might put ice on their arm. They might use lip balm, aromatherapy. They might use one of those little stress balls that you squeeze. Brushing skin with a toothbrush. Brushing hair over and over. One kid said, long hot shower. That works for me. But you know how it works the best? I take a long hot shower and I take the ketchup bottle in there with me. And if the kid's sitting in a classroom, we could actually teach him the strategy of look around the classroom. How many tiles are there in the ceiling? How many people have on open-toed shoes today? How many people are wearing earrings? How many people are wearing black? To pay attention to their surroundings and focus on that to get through a difficult period. Another young person said rollerblading worked for her. She kept the rollerblades in her car, and every opportunity she had, she put them on and she zipped around wherever she was. Tearing paper is another one. Scratching clothes, another substitute strategy. And several young people said something like this. Well, you know, when I went in the hospital, they demanded that I use one substitute strategy. And I now know there's like 100 of them. Why couldn't they at least given me a choice about what substitute strategy I thought might work the best for me? So I really believe that all of us working in mental health need to be familiar with substitute strategies. And again, how do we increase their coping skills? How do we teach them alternate behaviors? How do we increase their self-esteem? Now let's look specifically at treatment. You know, I wish I could sit here today and say, this is the single treatment that has been found to be the most effective. So here's what the literature says. No single treatment has really been identified. It's actually often multiple factors and treatment modalities. Very commonly, young people engaging in SI are placed on antidepressant medications, and that may help some of them, but that is automatically assuming that all of them are depressed, and not every young person engaging in self-injury is depressed. So, combination of medications, yes, in some cases, combinations of talk therapy, looking at some of the underlying behaviors, but the most promising is dialectical behavior therapy. referred to as DBT. A lady by the name of Marcia Linehan, who's currently at the University of Washington, is the person who pioneered this therapy. Well, it's a blend of our cognitive talk therapy, yes, and looking at things that might have happened in childhood and negative schema that we might have and things that impact us no matter what our age. That certainly can be a part of it. But DBT also involves some Eastern thinking. Mindfulness is a very big part of it, relaxation, participation in yoga and meditation. But perhaps the most unique part of DBT is really two things. First of all, in addition to the individual therapy the client receives weekly, they're usually in a skills group where they're learning skills with other people, maybe even 2 different times a week to go with their hour of individual therapy. But the most interesting part with DBT is that the primary therapist strives to be available by phone so that they can receive a call from their client who's in that period where they have this intense impulse to engage in self-injurious behavior, that they're able to reach the therapist, talk to them, hopefully get through a very difficult period. And what I just described doesn't really fit very well with what can be provided in schools because, again, we have school psychologists. A typical ratio, especially here in Florida, is about 1 to 2,000. School counselor ratio at best might be 1 to 400 or 500. So they're not going to be able to meet with a student 2 or 3 times a week, and are be very unlikely to be available at the moment the student might need them. So that's why it's so necessary to know our community resources. But I want to go back to something I said earlier because I suspect that most of the professionals watching this are not specifically trained in dialectical behavior therapy. Well, again, the most important thing is that you're willing to learn some of the techniques from DBT, that you're willing to keep up with the literature and best practices as they emerge about how to best respond and assist young people engaging in self-injurious behavior. You know, there are a number of famous people that have now come out and talked about their struggle with self-injury. You're probably aware of some of them. Princess Diana struggled a lot with self-injury. Johnny Depp, Marilyn Manson, also Angelina Jolie. In fact, Angelina Jolie was actually on Oprah not that long ago, basically saying something like this: girls, I had a terrible relationship with my father. I had a very turbulent adolescence. Cutting got me through it. Well, I don't think that's really the message we want anybody to hear from someone that would be looked up to and would have many things that young people would aspire today in terms of a Hollywood career, lifestyle, a celebrity. So we have to be very careful in our media. There are a number of television programs, a number of movies. 13 is a movie that came out a number of years ago that basically well documented how one girl with a very troubled trauma history taught another new friend how to basically cope with the ups and downs of life, engaging in cutting behavior. So we have to keep up with what the media is covering, and unfortunately most of the time the media is really not very helpful. There are several websites. There's certainly more, but several websites are listed as a part of this presentation: selfharm.org, selfabuse.com, and to write loveonorarms.com is also a very important website. And then I've also listed the information for a program that I did do for the state of Florida. They provided the funding. Lori and Emily came down from states in the north where they lived, and in Tallahassee we filmed a 2-hour program where I interviewed Lori and Emily, and they talked very eloquently about their struggle with self-injurious behavior. That 2-hour program is available on the Center for Child Welfare website for the state of Florida. The simplest way to find it on that website is to look under presenters with my last name, Poland, and I think you'll find it very helpful. State of Florida said that was actually the most watched mental health program in their history when it came out, in terms of thousands of people around the country viewed on satellite, and thousands of people have logged on. This is a very challenging area for mental health professionals, for school personnel, for parents. It's something that we all need to learn about. And I hope in some small way today that this presentation has given you some insight in terms of, first of all, why do they do it? They do it because it works. It helps them cope with stress. And the importance of us responding with compassion, us knowing strategies to help them reduce the behavior, and very important that we know the best treatment available in our schools and communities to help all the young people that are struggling with self-injurious behaviors. And thank you for this opportunity.